The throne room on Xylos Prime felt like a tomb. King Theron, his normally vibrant crystalline skin dulled to a murky gray, stood before Ambassador Caitlin Vance, a human of broad shoulders and an even broader presence. The air itself seemed to weep thick with the scent of dying, delicate flora that mirrored the Xylar themselves. For centuries their civilization had thrived, known across the galaxy for their ethereal beauty, their profound connection to energy, and their delicate, almost translucent forms. But now a blight known only as the Withering was consuming them from within. It was a genetic degradation, silent and insidious, stealing the vitality from their very essence. Each generation grew weaker, their offspring more fragile, many not surviving the ethereal transition from nascent energy to physical form. King Theron's heart, a complex lattice of light, ached with a despair so profound it threatened to shatter him. He was the last, or so it felt, to bear the weight of his people's twilight. His only surviving child, Princess Lyra, was the most afflicted, a mere whisper of a being, her shimmering energy field the only thing holding her delicate form together, shielding her from the slightest vibration, the gentlest breeze. She existed in a constant state of vulnerability, a fragile echo of a once proud lineage. Ambassador Vance, a representative of the burgeoning Terran hegemony, had arrived seeking a strategic alliance, a pact of trade and mutual defense. He was accustomed to the intricate dance of galactic diplomacy, to veiled threats and calculated proposals. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared him for the king's desperate offer. Theron's voice, usually a melodic chime, was now raspy with grief. "Ambassador Vance," he began, his gaze fixed on the human, "we are a fading people. Our scientists, our historians, our warriors, they are all succumbing. Soon our science, our profound understanding of energy, our very history will be nothing more than dust on the cosmic winds. But you, humans," he continued, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor in his voice, "you are different. You bloom in adversity. You are born of struggle and thrive in defiance. You adapt with a tenacity we Xylar can only marvel at. I offer you, my daughter Princess Lyra. She is the last hope of my line, the final fragile spark of our heritage. Take her. Let her learn your ways, your resilience. Let her lineage, through a union with one of your kind, find new strength. Let our essence, our legacy, be preserved, not through our failing biology, but through your vibrant, unyielding spirit." The silence that followed Theron's plea was not merely the absence of sound. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket that pressed down on every being in the ornate chamber. Caitlin Vance, a man who had faced down pirate fleets and negotiated with hostile empires, felt a cold knot form in his stomach. His mind reeled, grappling with the sheer audacity, the profound desperation of the king's proposal. He looked across the vast room, past the shimmering, dying tapestries, towards the corner where Princess Lyra floated, barely visible within her intricate, almost invisible energy field. She seemed less like a living being and more like a captured thought, a fragile, exquisite piece of art, so delicate it might crumble at a touch. Her eyes, large and dark like polished obsidian, held a sorrow that seemed ancient, deeper than any Caitlin had ever witnessed in his own robust species. To accept this unprecedented offer was to shoulder an immense, terrifying responsibility, to gamble with the future, of an entire alien civilization. It was a commitment that went far beyond political alliances or trade agreements. To refuse, however, was to condemn the Xyler, to watch their delicate light wink out of existence, to silently preside over the extinguishing of a unique and beautiful star in the galactic tapestry. The weight of that decision settled on Calen Vance's broad shoulders, a burden heavier than any he had ever carried, a silent question hanging in the air. Could humanity, in its raw, vibrant youth, truly grasp the dying hand of an elder race and pull it back from the void? The future of two species, so disparate, yet now so intertwined, hung precariously in that agonizing, breathless moment. Ambassador Calen Vance stood on the precipice of an impossible decision, the weight of a dying civilization pressing down on him. The silence in the Xyler throne room had stretched, taut and agonizing, until finally he inhaled deeply the unfamiliar, floral scent of the Xyler world filling his lungs. He looked once more at Princess Lyra, a shimmering, almost ethereal presence in her protective field, and then back at King Theron, whose eyes, dulled by sorrow, held a flicker of desperate hope. Calen was a man of logic, of strategy, but in that moment logic gave way to something more profound, a deep-seated human empathy, a refusal to let a species simply vanish. He extended his hand, not in a formal diplomatic gesture, but in a simple human offer of aid. "Your Majesty, Calen's?" Voice was steady, resonant in the quiet chamber. "The Terran hegemony accepts your daughter into our care. We will do everything within our power to honor your trust." A collective, almost imperceptible sigh rippled through the Xyler court. A fragile breath of relief dot the transfer of Princess Lyra from Xylos Prime to the Terran starship Odyssey was an operation of unprecedented delicacy. Every precaution was taken, every atmospheric variable meticulously controlled. Her chamber on the Odyssey was a sterile, almost clinical environment, a bubble of Xyler-compatible air and energy fields within the robust, bustling human vessel. She was a ghost in their midst, her form so delicate that the vibrations of the ship's engines, imperceptible to humans, caused her subtle discomfort. Hegemony doctors and scientists, a team of brilliant minds, approached her with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They knew little of Xyler biology beyond what King Theron had provided, a species whose very existence was a dance with pure energy, whose physical forms were mere conduits now failing. Their task was not just medical. It was an ethical tightrope. Walk attempting to integrate a dying alien biology with human resilience without destroying the fragile life they sought to save. Lyra's initial days were a struggle. The human atmosphere, though carefully filtered, felt coarse against her crystalline skin. The gravity, even at reduced levels, was a constant, subtle pressure she had never known. Sounds, so muted in her Xyler existence, now crashed upon her heightened senses like thunder. She communicated telepathically, her thoughts a mere whisper in the minds of the human specialists, often conveying only discomfort or a profound, ancient weariness. She was a captive of her own frailty, a prisoner in a body that betrayed her. Yet, amidst the discomfort, a new sensation began to prickle at her. She observed the humans around her, their quick, decisive movements, their loud, expressive laughter, their seemingly boundless energy. She watched them train in the ship's gymnasium, their bodies straining, muscles flexing, sweat beading on their skin, only to recover and push themselves again. It was a concept alien to her people, this deliberate embrace of physical exertion, this constant striving against limits. The human doctors, led by the gentle but persistent Dr. Harris Thorne, began the slow, painstaking process of introducing Lyra to their world. They started with language, simple words, then phrases, teaching her not just the sounds but the nuances, the emotions embedded within human communication. They shared stories of human history, not of ancient prophecies or ethereal wisdom, but of struggles, of perseverance, of falling and rising again. They spoke of resilience, a word that resonated strangely within Lyra's energy-infused mind. It was a concept her people had lost, perhaps never truly possessed in the human sense. They had adapted to their environment, yes, but they had never fought against their own decline with such raw physical determination. Lyra, confined to her chamber, began to absorb it all, her obsidian eyes tracking every movement, every expression, every spoken word. She saw the human spirit in action, vibrant and unyielding, and a tiny, almost imperceptible shift began within her. One day, while observing a human physical therapy session through the transparent wall of her chamber, Lyra felt a new kind of discomfort, not from the environment, but from within herself, a dull ache of stagnation. She had always been passive, her survival dependent on the careful maintenance of her surroundings. But watching the human therapist guide a recovering patient through strenuous exercises, pushing past pain to regain strength, something stirred deep within Lyra's energy core. It was a flicker, a nascent spark of defiance. She reached out, not telepathically, but with a barely perceptible extension of her own energy field, a tentative, almost unconscious attempt to mimic the subtle movements of the human's healing muscles. The human doctors, constantly monitoring her, noted the anomalous energy signature, a deviation from her usual passive state. It was minute, almost insignificant, yet it was the first voluntary action she had taken that wasn't a response to discomfort. It was a push, a tiny, desperate reach for something more than mere existence. The frail princess, the dying ember of a lineage, had just for the very first time tried to take a step, and in that single, almost imperceptible act, a new, terrifying, yet exhilarating awakening had begun. The withering still cast its long shadow, but within the confines of the Odyssey, a faint new light had just ignited, promising a fight for survival that would defy all expectations. That the flicker of defiance Lyra had shown in her chamber on the Odyssey was not a fleeting spark. It was the genesis of a transformation so profound it defied the very understanding of both Xyler and human biology. Under the watchful eyes of human bioengineers and medical specialists, her physical metamorphosis began, a process that was agonizingly slow and often excruciatingly painful. Her delicate, crystalline structure, once so brittle, started to integrate with newly introduced cellular growth, a marvel of genetic engineering and sheer, stubborn will. Each day brought a new challenge, a new sensation. The subtle hum of the ship, once a source of discomfort, now became a faint, almost comforting vibration against her stabilizing form. Her senses, once exquisitely attuned only to the most minute energy shifts, were now adapting to the tactile world, to the rough texture of a training mat, the cool brush of air on her skin, the earthy scent of human rations. She learned to differentiate between the gentle pressure of a human hand and the firm grip of a medical instrument, each touch a new lesson in the physical reality she was now inhabiting. Ambassador Caitlin Vance, who visited her daily, saw the fierce determination in her obsidian eyes, a fire that burned brighter with each passing week. Lyra, who had once communicated only in whispers of thought, now spoke in a soft, melodic voice, her English clear and precise, though still tinged with an alien cadence. Her fascination with human combat disciplines, with the raw power and focused energy of their martial arts, grew into an obsession. She devoured tactical manuals, watched hours of training simulations, and absorbed every detail. Caitlin, recognizing this burgeoning drive, knew she needed a mentor who understood both the brutal realities of combat and the delicate art of pushing boundaries. He assigned her to Master Sergeant Eva Wraith Rostova, a legend within the Terran hegemony's special forces, a woman whose reputation for unflinching discipline and unparalleled skill preceded her. Sergeant Rostova, a woman of sharp eyes and even sharper wit, was initially skeptical. She had trained hardened veterans, not glass princesses. Her first sessions with Lyra were a test of wills. Rostova pushed, demanding physical exertion that seemed impossible for Lyra's still adapting body. There were moments of intense pain, of near collapse, where Lyra's energy field would flicker erratically, threatening to give way. But each time, just as the human medical team prepared to intervene, Lyra would rally, her eyes fixed on Rostova, a silent refusal to yield. Rostova, a keen observer of human spirit, began to see something extraordinary in the alien princess, an unyielding resolve, a quiet fury that belied her delicate appearance. Lyra absorbed every lesson, every technique, every grueling exercise. She learned to brace against impact, to channel kinetic energy, to move with a newfound precision. Her Zealer heritage, once a weakness, began to manifest as unique and terrifying strengths. Her innate energy manipulation, once a passive shield, became an active, offensive tool. She discovered she could create focused, kinetic pulses, small bursts of force that could disrupt an opponent's balance or shatter a training target. She learned to subtly manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum, disrupting enemy targeting systems with focused mental projections, making her an almost invisible blur on the battlefield. Her movements, already graceful due to her Xyler nature, became fluid and deadly, an otherworldly dance of calculated strikes and shimmering energy. The training culminated in a brutal, live-fire exercise in a simulated urban combat zone. Lyra, now clad in a specialized, lightweight combat suit designed to accommodate her unique physiology, was tasked with neutralizing a squad of veteran hegemony soldiers, armed with non-lethal but potent stun weapons. The soldiers, confident in their experience, approached the exercise with professional detachment, expecting a challenging but ultimately predictable engagement. What they encountered was a whirlwind. Lyra moved with a speed that defied her still recovering body, a blur of motion that seemed to phase in and out of their targeting reticles. She wasn't just dodging, she was predicting, her Zealer intuition, for energy flow, allowing her to anticipate their movements. A focused pulse here, a shimmering disruption there, and one by one, the veteran soldiers found their weapons malfunctioning, their balance thrown, their movements countered with an almost supernatural precision. She disarmed them with a terrifying efficiency, her strikes precise, her movements economical. In less than 5 minutes the entire squad was neutralized, their stun weapons scattered, their expressions a mixture of shock and grudging respect. The frail princess, the dying ember of a lineage, was gone. In her place stood a warrior, her crystalline skin now radiating a faint, internal glow, her obsidian eyes burning with a fierce, quiet power. She had not only survived, she had transcended, forging a new path not just for herself, but for the very concept of what it meant to be Xyler, a living testament to the unyielding spirit she had found in humanity. The suspense now was not if she would survive, but what incredible, terrifying power she would wield next. News of Princess Lyra's astonishing transformation, carried by the fastest human diplomatic couriers and then amplified by the Xyler's own ancient telepathic networks, rippled through the dying Xyler civilization like a shockwave, a flicker of hope, fragile but undeniable, ignited in the hearts of a people who had long resigned themselves to oblivion. They had seen their offspring fade, their elders weaken, their future dim. But here, in the stories of the human trained, Princess was a vision of something new, something strong. Yet not all hope was benevolent. A renegade Xyler faction, driven to desperation by the relentless withering and radicalized by their fear of extinction, clung to a twisted belief that the only salvation lay in reclaiming their pure form untainted by outside influence, and eradicating any alien presence, especially the humans they now saw as a threat to their perceived purity. They viewed Lyra not as a savior, but as an abomination, a living betrayal of their heritage. This faction, led by the charismatic but fanatical elder Kalen, a former mentor to Lyra herself, launched a surprise, brutal attack on a joint Xyler human research outpost located on the fringes of Xylos Prime. Their objective, to steal experimental human bio-enhancements, believing these could somehow reverse the withering and restore their purity, even if it meant sacrificing countless lives. Lyra, now a fully integrated hegemony operative, her specialized combat suit as second skin that amplified her unique Xyler abilities, found herself on the front lines. She had arrived at the outpost just hours before the attack, part of a diplomatic and training mission. The sudden, chaotic assault plunged the outpost into pandemonium. Energy weapons flashed, alarms blared, and the delicate Xyler researchers, unaccustomed to violence, scattered in terror. Lyra moved through the chaotic battleground with a deadly, almost ethereal precision. She was a whirlwind of focused energy and calculated strikes. Her Xyler grace combined seamlessly with the brutal efficiency of human combat prowess. She didn't just fight, she led. Her innate Xyler understanding of energy flow allowed her to anticipate the renegades' movements, to disrupt their weapon systems with subtle, targeted pulses, turning their own technology against them. Her tactical insights, honed by Master Sergeant Rostova's relentless training, combined with human strategic thinking, allowed her to identify weaknesses in the renegades' assault patterns, turning their initial advantage into disarray. She was a ghost in their midst, a shimmering blur that struck with devastating force. The renegade Xyler, accustomed to fighting a weakened, traditional enemy, were unprepared for Lyra. They had expected a delicate princess, not a force of nature. Lyra confronted Elder Kalen in the outpost's central research lab, a place where she had spent many of her early, fragile years. Kalen, his crystalline form radiating a cold, fanatical light, accused her of abandoning her people, of becoming a hybrid abomination. "You are no longer Xyler, Lyra," he hissed, his voice a distorted echo of the melodic tones she remembered. "You are a perversion." Lyra met his gaze, her obsidian eyes burning with a fierce, unwavering resolve. "I am more Xyler than you, Elder," she replied, her voice steady. "For I carry our future, not our past. True strength is not in preserving what is dying, but in forging what can live." Their clash was a symphony of light and shadow, of ancient energy manipulation against newly forged combat techniques. Lyra fought not with anger, but with a profound sense of purpose, a desperate need to protect the fragile alliance that represented her people's only true hope. She used her energy pulses to disarm him, her heightened senses to anticipate his every move, her human-trained body to counter his ancient, predictable techniques. She proved that true strength wasn't in clinging to a dying lineage, but in embracing change, adaptation, and the terrifying, beautiful potential of evolution. The renegades, their leader defeated and their plans in ruins, were quickly subdued. As the dust settled and the alarms quieted, the remaining Xyler, who had witnessed Lyra's strength and the genuine, unwavering commitment of the humans, found renewed hope. They saw in Lyra not an abomination, but a beacon. Her crystalline skin, now radiating a vibrant internal glow, seemed to pulse with a new kind of life. She had not only risen as a mighty warrior, but had become the living embodiment of a new, powerful legacy, a testament to what happens when human spirit meets alien potential. The withering still plagued their world, but now, with human science and Lyra's unique insights, the Xyler began to understand its true nature, not as a curse, but as a challenge to adapt. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of humanity, now watched with stunned silence as the Terran hegemony, guided by Ambassador Vance and led by Princess Lyra, began to truly integrate with the Xyler, sharing knowledge, technology, and, most importantly, hope. The Frail daughter offered, too. A human had not just survived. She had become the catalyst for a new epoch, a testament to the unyielding power of collaboration, and the dawn of a future where steel and spirit, human and alien, intertwined to create something far greater than either could have achieved alone. The legacy of the Xyler would not be one of quiet extinction, but of a vibrant, unexpected rebirth, forged in the crucible of human courage and alien resilience.